Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Mandy. I've been a makeup artist professionally for 21 years. I've worked for myself for the last 12, and I do a lot of wedding makeup. And this video today, I want to take you through the steps that I would do on a client, on myself for wedding makeup. So if you are wanting to do your own makeup for your wedding, or you are a makeup artist and you have clients and you want to just learn more bridal tips and tricks, you're going to like this video. So hopefully you will get some educational content out of my video. You'll be inspired. You will become a better artist. These are all things that I am hoping to achieve here. So I'm going to take you through kind of a very natural makeup look for a wedding. And most of my clientele, I would say, are more on the natural side. I'm based in California. It's a very different look out here versus, say, like New York, New Jersey, Texas. Every place regionally kind of has, I would say, kind of a look to and a feeling and a type of bride that I see over and over again. So I'm going to take you through just a very natural, clean makeup look. I'm 41 years old. I've been married. I don't know that I'm going to do it again, but I'm here to share with you the makeup tricks that I would use if I were to do that. So I'm going to start because I have some old skincare on from this morning, and it's now like 4:40 p.m. So I'm going to take off what I have on, and we're going to go from there. So if I'm taking off, my first step with somebody when they sit in my chair, I ask them if they have anything on their skin. And sometimes they say no, sometimes it's visibly some old makeup from the night before, which is gross. So please wash your face. I prefer when my clients sit in my chair with nothing on the skin. But if they do have something on the skin, I'm going to remove it. So I'm using a Kryolan. This is just a micellar water. You can use Bioderma. I have both, but I've heard good things about this one, so we're trying it out. I'm putting a little bit of that on this little puff here, or not puff, it's like a little gauze pad thing. And I am just going to go over the entire face with it to get anything off that may be on the skin. So when you're out in the field and you're doing weddings, unless you incorporate it into your day and into your bridal package with your bride or your bridesmaids, there's probably not a lot of time to do like a whole facial type situation with each person. So just make sure that they've at least washed their face. I prefer to start everybody with a bare face. So I'm using that first. I don't like to leave that just on the skin because sometimes they have a little bit of an emollient situation going on. So I'm using a water wipe on top of that just to get off any residue that might be on the skin. Water wipes are great to keep on hand too, just to clean up everything on your hands afterward when you're working. Okay, so that's it for, I have nothing on my face right now. I'm going to just blow it dry before I put on some, I'll probably do like a serum and then my normal moisturizer that I use on everybody. On my lip, I'm going to use this Ormetic, it's by Image, Ormetic Lip Complex. I like to put something on the client's lip in the beginning. And that way that has a chance to soak in. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to put on this kind of milky toner. This is by Laneige. I don't even know if they make this anymore. They used to make it. I think the cream skin maybe is what replaced it. And this just it's like a watery moisturizing toner. I use it kind of in place of a serum because it soaks in really well. With doing wedding makeup, I think the trick is not too many things on the skin before you actually go in with product, because too many layers of product it'll slide around. But you want to have the skin underneath well hydrated. That's why I like to pack this on, let it dry a little bit. And it kind of like has just a nice, you can feel like, you can see my skin is just like shiny, like moisturized, but it's not oily at all or greasy. So that is my favorite for prepping skin before moisturizer. So now my moisturizer that I'm gonna use. Okay, so I'm gonna pick up my moisturizer. It's the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base. And it's thick, she's thick, but she soaks in. So I'm getting some of that on my skin, and we are just gonna prep. This stuff smells so good too. And it feels good on the skin. The one thing about this is even though it's thick, it soaks in really well. And it kind of acts as a primer in the sense that it gives some grip to whatever you put on top of it, but it's not greasy, like makeup doesn't sit weird on top of the skin with this. If you have somebody who's really oily, you could probably just get away with just doing the Laneige, or you could incorporate something like a primer like the Danessa Myricks Universal Blurring Balm, whatever it's called. You could probably use that like in the center of the forehead, wherever somebody's getting oily. I tend to get a little oily, but I'm not worried about it. I think it looks nice. I'll just set everything really well. I'll just set everything really well with powder. Okay, so we are going to I'm gonna do eyes first. And it's kind of funny because I don't really wear a ton of eye makeup just in general. So I'm gonna take you through as if I were doing this on a client here. So I've made this palette. This palette has a lot of, I'm trying to get in the right frame here. This palette has a lot of shimmers, all different colors of shimmers. And this whole like top row is just like bridal city here. So I'm gonna use that here in a second. I'm getting ahead of myself because I need to prep my eyelids first. So I prep my eyelids. I like to use a concealer. The concealer I like to use for this process is the MAC Pro Longwear. I like to use MAC Pro Longwear for this. This is color NW20. And I'm a back of the hand girl. I put stuff on the back of my hand, and that's gonna go under my color that I do on my eyes. So this is exactly how I would be doing it on a client. We're covering the whole eyelid. I want to make sure you guys can all see what I'm doing. I've had some issues in the past with filming and having everything like set up the right way. It's kind of hard to make sure that things are in the right framing. You're not cutting off the bottom of your head or anything like that. So that's a little bit like fair. So I'm just blending that out so it's not so like thick with a concealer brush. And these are like my brushes that I'm using. I have not cleaned all of them because I use them every day, but some of them are clean. Okay, so I'm putting that back down into the brush kit. So my eye canvas is done technically. A lot of people will use an eye primer. I like the MAC Pro Longwear Concealer. I feel like it doesn't need a primer on top of it. It sets itself and it'll stay. So I'm not going to use anything else. So the next thing we need to do is get into a matte eyeshadow palette here. And I'm going to use this one, another one that I've made here. Mostly Viseart eyeshadows, a couple NARS shadows, and then that's all Viseart shadows on the bottom that are meant for the brows, but you can use them however you want to. So we're gonna get into this. The look I'm gonna do too is something that I know works really well on me specifically, and a look that I think is just a timeless bridal look, which would be kind of pinkish, champagne-y colors. A lot of people love the look of like kind of champagne-y, rose gold, just tones like that that are not, you know, dark smoky eye or winged liner with, you know, not the like pinup style. This is just a very easily achievable look. So anyway, enough chit-chatting. I'm gonna get to work here. So I'm taking a blending brush. Any blending brush is fine as long as it's a little bit fluffy, something like this. What you're not wanting is something that's like firm or puts a lot of color down. So I'm gonna pick up one of these here. My goal is that this should look kind of like my skin tone, maybe like slightly darker than my skin tone. I'm gonna actually we're gonna rewind. I am gonna pick up, where did that other palette go? I'm actually gonna use this palette only for this part because I need a transition color that's slightly warm. Some of these are a little too cool. Transition color is just a fancy word for the color that goes in your crease that's kind of a little darker than your skin tone, but I want it to be warm, so I might pick up one of these over here, one of these here. So I think I'm gonna go with this one here. And I don't want a lot of it on my brush, maybe a little bit of that one. And this is just gonna kind of go all the way through the crease, maybe a little bit of it even just like slightly up into the brow. That's it. So this is not very dark here on me. The idea is whatever I do on my lid will transition smoothly up into the brow or just kind of fade nicely into the skin. So that's that for my crease color. I missed one step that I'm gonna do real quickly here, and that is put some gel stuff in my brows. I use the e.l.f. Brow Lift. I want to do this before I get any more makeup on my face because it will pull that like foundation color up into the brow skin, and I do not want that. So I'm just brushing these kind of up and over and back. It gives it a little more fullness. This is optional here, especially if you're doing brides, because not every bride really needs this or likes this look. I like it a little bit, but I don't do that full. I kind of brush it over too, so I don't like the look of that like barcode eyebrow, but my brows can get a little bit on the unruly side, so I just wanted to brush those into place. So my trick is I brush them and then I tap it down with my finger to like flatten it out Just really, really lightly tap it with the finger. Okay. So we have done the transition color. I work from kind of lightest to darkest, and then shimmer will be the last step in this process. So now I'm going to pick up that first palette that I have the cooler tones in, and we're going to go with something down here, kind of in these like mid-tone berry colors. Just a little bit of it. This is also technically a blending brush, but it's smaller, and it has, it's goat hair. So goat hair is can be a little firm. It depends on the goat, and it depends on the quality of the brush. But goat hair can be a little bit on the firmer side. And I am kind of just putting that in that outer sort of V, and then slowly kind of smoking it across the lid. This look on me, like, I don't really love a ton of like eyeshadow. Like, I don't like a lot of color on my eyes. So the bulk of this is going to be the shimmery shade that I do here in a minute. But this is just building up a little bit of shape. And I'm kind of feeling a purpley tone here. I think it's pretty. So far, just a little bit of this purple tone and the transition color. Next, I'm gonna get into some of these here, some of these darker tones with a tiny little, like more of a firm, they call this like a filbert brush. And I'm gonna get into this dark tone right here, because I'm gonna smudge that along the lash line, kind of in the outer corner of the lash line. So this brush is like perpendicular to my eye. And I'm just pressing it in. I'm not swiping, I'm not painting. It's a little weird to do this when you have to look at yourself in the mirror. However, now my eye's twitching for some reason. So I'm just pressing that in. You don't have to use a brush like this. You can use a smaller brush. I just didn't have one just right on me at the moment. A lot of makeup is just getting things to work. Like using things that aren't necessarily meant for what you're trying to do. Like using, you know, lipstick as blush, or using a certain brush to do a different brush's job. There's a lot of freestyling when it comes to makeup. I'm grabbing an angled brush, same color, that really dark color. And I'm just, since this is smaller and I want to get closer into the lash line here, I am pressing that in. This can also act as a base for eyeliner if you're going to do eyeliner in a look like this. This gives you like a little bit of some room to not mess up, but it gives you a little bit of leeway with your whatever liner situation you choose to do later. So I'm with that angled brush, I'm kind of pulling out like, I don't know, the tiniest little bit of a wing here. I wouldn't even say it's a wing, it's more of like a wedge just on the corner. So far that's that. I'm gonna just smudge this a little bit more here. Okay. So I'm liking how that's looking so far. I don't need to take any more of those dark colors. I just don't need it, because I'm doing my eyes first and I don't have anything else on my skin, sometimes you may notice that the eyes can start to look like they are very heavily made up before the rest of the makeup is done. So I like to do eyes first because you can clean up the stuff that falls down on the face. But if you're doing this on a person and they want to look and see what you're doing, you can tell them, you know, the process isn't done, but you can take a look. I have no problem with people wanting to take a look. It's just, you know, making sure they're aware that the process isn't complete. So, okay, so we're gonna get into these shimmery colors here. I'm gonna use like one of these up here, kind of like a pinky one. I need a brush that is a little bit firmer and kind of small-ish. So I'm gonna put a little bit on my brush here. And we're gonna pack it on. I'm actually saying screw this, and I'm gonna put it on with my fingertip because it picks color up so much better. You can kind of see it. This is one of the Viseart shades. And it's so much easier to put your shimmer on last because the doesn't make everything else muddy. I feel like when you're doing shimmers and mattes together, you can get kind of muddy. So I want to do a little bit of this purpley kind of shimmery tone because now that I'm in here working, I'm really feeling having this lean kind of purpley because I think it's pretty. And for no other reason than I just think it's pretty. Okay, so eyes are done as far as shadow goes. I'm happy with that. I'm gonna move some of these eyeshadows back into my kit here. We're gonna go in with black, and it's gonna be a very fine line along my lash line, only on the top. And I'm gonna get in there with another angled brush like this, little tiny little dot on my hand. This is the Danessa Myricks Color Fix Mattes in black. And we're getting up close to the mirror here. And I'm using the length of the brush to just press it in to the lash line. So it's not quite a tight line, but almost, because I'm not in between the lashes. I'm right on the lash line. And then I turn the brush around so the point is pointing toward the wing. And that's that. You can kind of, I flip back and forth the brush so the wing, the angle of the brush can get to the wing or the angle can get to the inside. So depending on where I'm at, I tend to like to start kind of in the middle. And it's okay to see that you need to add a little bit to the other side as you're working. Okay. So I will say that I think this side's a little thick. So what do we do in that situation? We take a little bit of micellar water on a Q-tip. My eyes are different shapes, most people's are. I always have more problem with the wing on this side than I do on the other. So I'm kind of like rolling this Q-tip around that area, and I'm gonna also clean up a little bit from the bottom. I will say I think this micellar water works a little better than the Bioderma. It feels like it's breaks it up a little faster. And we are getting from this side here too. Okay. So one of the annoying things about having to do that is you got to go back in with shadow and kind of fix it. But it shouldn't be that hard. So that's that. And then I'm going to be using a dark color and smudging it along that liner. So we're just going to take that same dark color that I did kind of as a pre-liner liner, and I'm going to smudge that into that lash line. I'm going to actually get a smaller brush. We're going to get a brush like this, very tiny. And this, I'm not really bringing it all the way across. This is more just on the outer kind of V shape here. And this is particularly because my eye shape specifically does well with kind of this like winged edge eyeliner. Except this side is misbehaving, so I'm gonna clean up a little bit with micellar water. And clean that up. And then I'm gonna clean everything else up that kind of fell onto the cheek. I'm gonna get another Q-tip. Clean everything up that fell onto the cheek. And there's a tiny bit of an area where I'm actually going to go in with some black. I don't want black all over, but I just want it on this little section. I just wanted it on a little section that needed a little bit of filling in, and I didn't want to get back in there with liner. So using a little bit of black shadow just to fill this little tiny section in here. Maybe a tiny bit on that side. And I'm like barely tapping that into that black. Okay. So you can kind of see how that wing is just like on the outer edge there. But it's not really like a big aggressive wing. It's still a pretty light wing. My next part that I'm gonna do is just some mascara. And I'm gonna do the mascara first, move on to the rest of the face, the brows, everything, and then I'm gonna do lashes at the very end because if powder falls down onto them or whatever, I'll just do them at the end. You could also wait and do the mascara at the end, but sometimes mascara clumps can kind of fall onto the face, or you might like stab your nose with it, or they blink and there's mascara everywhere. So I like to do the eyes, mascara, and then lashes at the end. And then if I need to, I can just use a fan brush. See, I just got a little mascara in my crease. And then I can just use a fan brush at the end with some mascara on it to cover up any little bits that, you know, might have got foundation on it or powder or whatever. And this is just black mascara. On a wedding day, I would use usually a tubing mascara or a waterproof. I've been liking tubing mascaras lately though, because they don't really run. They kind of flake off, but they don't run like streaky. if you get those little like chunks on the mascara, like I think I need to replace this mascara here soon. I just like push my finger into it and it sort of like smooths out the lashes. So next thing I'm gonna do is prep my face. And I'm gonna use foundations that I actually do use on my clients. The first one I'm gonna do is the e.l.f. Halo Glow. I'm gonna do number 2. And I'm gonna put that on the back of my hand. And I'm gonna take a foundation brush and just work this in as a first layer. Because what this is gonna do, it's gonna sort of even out my skin. I have decent skin. I'm not trying to cover anything that is, I don't have like cystic acne or anything like that, but I like to be a little glowy. So if you have somebody who has acne or a lot of texture and they want to stay really matte, sometimes being too matte in certain areas, like you can be matte in the areas where you have the texture, but sometimes being too matte can look like lifeless, like you don't really have, like you need some life in the skin. At least that's my philosophy here, is I like to have some life in the skin. So I like to start out with sort of a glowy base. The e.l.f. Halo Glow has been my favorite. So we're starting there. So that will like sort of set on the skin a little bit. In lieu of a primer, that is what I use on somebody. And then I am going to, I haven't tried this foundation on myself in a long time, so color-wise, I am saying, yeah, that's probably good. So Face Atelier Ultra Foundation. This is my absolute favorite foundation ever. I've been carrying it in my kit for many years now, and it's amazing. And I have little, I can feel little furries on my face. So I'm using a dry, clean spoolie to get anything off. This is a really good trick if you have brush hairs on your face, which is probably what this is. Yeah, I can see little brush hairs. Just use a clean spoolie and use that to pick that up. Okay, I'm gonna use kind of a small foundation brush here. All the foundation brushes I use are synthetic hair. This is a silicone-based foundation. It's absolutely amazing. It's so pretty. It's skin-like. It does not have too thick of a coverage. I would say it's, I also am getting over a cold, so my nose is shedding. I would say it has kind of a glowy finish, but not glowy in that it's shimmery, but glowy in that it has just luminosity to it. So even if you put this down over skin that is not prepped with something shimmery underneath, it'll still just look like this beautiful skin-like texture. And I like a small foundation brush because I can like tap in. I can also like get around the eyes a little easier. You'll never see me using like a big ass brush. I would even put a whole face of foundation on with a concealer brush. I'm tapping it into some of the areas that I don't want. If I have some pores going on my cheeks. I had acne as a kid, kind of in between my brows here and on the forehead. I would say that's an okay color on me. It's probably a little bit warm, but I don't mind it. It's my first time using this, not this foundation, but just this color. I think I probably would have worked in maybe a little bit of a pink or a little bit of a blue corrector. I probably would have started with probably blue. If you have a color that's a little too yellowy or orangey, yellow, you would need a violet corrector. So yeah, I'd probably do a pink and a blue or my violet corrector to get that shade perfect, because it's a little bit, like I can tell, it's a little bit golden compared to my neck. I'm a little more neutral. However, it's not so obvious that I'm gonna do anything about it because I don't want to correct it. So I'm gonna leave it. Okay, so the next fun part of this process is underpainting with blush. So I have this Makeup Forever palette here with some blush and bronzer. So I'm gonna take this little guy again, and we're gonna grab some of the light pink and the berry and sort of the nude. Nudes are so orange on me, so I don't want any of that. I'm also gonna take a little bit of the foundation, and we are going to mix all that in. That foundation will cut some of the real intensity of that, and then I get, this is what I get for my color here. I'm gonna work in a little bit more warmth because I'm not so cool toned that I need a blue pink. I'm more neutral, so I can get away with kind of these watermelon-y pinks that aren't, you know, watermelon-y pink to me is like a more of a neutral pink, whereas like a coral or a peach would be warm, and a baby pink or something like that would be considered more cool. So I'm taking my brush, and when I'm doing weddings or really any client, I'm constantly mixing up 20 different products to give me my like unique shade for their face, whether it's foundation or concealer or blush, lipstick. I'm always mixing up lipstick colors. And if you see me keep going in with this, it's because I keep feeling little tiny fluffs. So what we're gonna do now is, so I have the blush on. Okay, so my next step, we're taking a different color palette of that because this has a cooler tone contour in it. But I'm gonna mix that with the warmer one that's next to it. And we're going to get ourselves a little contour shade. This is not quite underpainting anymore. This is overpainting. But these are pretty sheer, so I like how well it'll blend into everything else. Plus, I don't use like a ton of this type of thing. I like it a little bit around my temple and my forehead because I have a 5 head. And just a little bit kind of down here. My trick is with skin, I want it to just look like skin. I don't really want it to be obvious that you have contour on. Taking a larger brush to buff out. This brush, I also use it for, I feel like I'm losing hair over here. So this brush I also use for powder bronzer. So it's probably got a little bit of bronzer on it from my powder selection. I like to make a double chin at myself in the mirror and go through and blend out my contour. This is looking really pretty, I think. And you can just blend to your heart's content here. Okay. My eyebrow's itchy. So one of the things too that I like to do, I have my blush that comes basically right to the apples of my cheeks, but I'm gonna blend that out because I still haven't done concealer yet, which is my next step. So with the concealer, I'm gonna use the same palette from Makeup Forever. I'm gonna see which one I actually wanna use because the colors are a little different. I think I'm gonna use the light. So a couple of these colors from the light on here. I have to see what we've got because I'm going to have to mix. So I'm mixing the two lighter tones and getting something that's a little kind of peachy. I'm using a concealer brush. Not getting in there too crazy. And my under eyes, I'm not really wanting to draw a ton of attention to the under eye with something bright. So this brush is really soft. I'm getting right up on it, but with almost no product on the brush. And that is because I'm gonna go under there with a little bit of shadow here in a minute. So we're going all around the mouth, kind of up under here, kind of through the center of the forehead, up on the cheekbone a little bit. And then I get back in there with a little bit larger brush and I'm tapping everything out. Just tapping everything out around there, not swiping, just tapping, pulling stuff down onto the neck. You have to assume that people are going to be seen from every single angle. So if you're doing contour that only looks good from straight on with flash photography, as soon as you turn that face to the side, you're going to see this like thick brown line here. You're going to see thick brown line here, thick brown line. Like, you just own your face. Like, you can't do anything about if you're carrying extra weight, if you have wrinkles, if you have texture. The more you add to that to try to make it look like you're taking away from it, the more obvious it's going to be. So less is more in that case. So I have like a full palette on the back of my hand now. I'm going to wipe all that off because I don't need any more of that. And we are going to get into the powder situation. So powdering is, that is probably the most important, one of the most important steps when it comes to really making sure your makeup is set. And I'm gonna have a couple of different powders going on. And I'm gonna have a powder puff because I need to press the loose powder into my face. And then I'm gonna get in with some powder, blush, and bronzer, and then finishing powder, and then setting spray. I could do a setting spray now, but I don't really need it right now, and I don't want to add any extra like layers of things. I know a lot of people like to spray setting spray on before powder, but I haven't figured out if I like that process yet, so we're not doing that quite yet. So I'm digging out this is Kryolan Dermacolor loose powder. That's my favorite. I'm getting a little bit and I'm pressing it into this puff. And we are going around. You'll notice I'm not really getting up under the eye. I'm getting through the center of the face. And I'm getting in this little bit here that tends to get oily. And I'm not getting through the center of the under the eye because I'm going to use a lighter brush for that. I'm not a fan of baking. I'm not a fan of a lot of things when it comes to makeup. Probably because I've been doing it for so long and I've seen it all. I've seen it all. And I hate most of it. No, I'm not that much of a bitch, but I don't know. When you've been doing something for so long and you know what works and you know what doesn't work, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to refine your process. So I have a powder blush and bronzer and contour palette that I've made that basically has everything that you possibly need in it. So we are going to use this. I need to get kind of this is a MAC brush that I've had for like 100 years. And I'm going to, I don't mind the tone that we have going on with the cream blush on my face, but I just want to brighten it a tiny bit. So I'm going to do a little bit of this one and a little bit of this one. Like I said, I'm more neutral, so I can get away with kind of packing on a warmer pink with a baby pink. The baby pink will cut down some of the warmth. It won't make it look too orange on me. And vice versa goes for the orangey pink, cutting down some of the coolness of the baby pink. So I'm happy with that. I have this palette that I've made that has 3 bronzers in it. One is a Tarte bronzer. This is for my fair girls. And then this is more of a cooler toned bronzer from Sephora. And this is a warmer tone bronzer from Sephora. I'm going to get in there with the warmer tone. And instead of contouring, quote unquote, I'm just using a warmer bronzer just to kind of give my face some warmth, some shape. Soften out that blush. Neck. Gotta do the neck. So my skin is already like glowing and I'm very happy with where we're at currently. However, you can never have too much. Actually, you can. I take that back. I'm going to use a finishing powder, which is the ambient lighting powder from Hourglass. And this is kind of in lieu of a highlight. I do have the Dior highlight, and I don't think I need it. So we're just going to go in with like these 2 colors here. I'm just going right across. And I'm just going to do kind of my whole face, through the center of the face, up onto the cheekbones, even through the center of the forehead, and on the brow bone here. So what this does is it is giving a lot of life back in the skin. And you can see how it looks on camera, but in person, it's just so, everything is just blended so seamlessly. It does not have any hard lines anywhere. Nothing is showing through as far as like you can't see all the product on the face. It still looks very light on the face. And that's because it's thin layers. Nothing is applied with a heavy hand. Not last step. I got a few steps left. But the next step I'm going to do is my brows. And for that, I actually have a little brow color in my personal makeup kit that I like. And it's just this little shadow here, which is probably just like it's a universal brown shade. I don't need a ton of my brows. I'm not overdoing it in the brows because 1, I already brushed them up with the gel, and 2, I dye them, and 3, I tattooed them like 3 years ago. So they are pretty well taken care of as it is. This is just giving some color to them, some life. Looks good to me. I'm gonna get in there with a little spoolie and kind of brush through that. My nemesis is visible brush strokes. So if I can see visible brush strokes, I'm gonna have a meltdown. Not really, but you know what I mean. Okay, so this is where I kind of take stock of the look and I think, and I see like, okay, what do I want to add? What do I want to take away? And the one thing I'm noticing that I want to actually add is from the Dior palette. I know I said I wasn't going to use the highlighter and I'm not using it on my face, but I am going to use it on my eye. I'm going to take the white and I'm just going to work it on my finger like that. Because I feel like this needs to be like slightly brighter. And because I got in there earlier with kind of some purples, I'm getting in there with a white. Which brush is which? Okay. But every time I add something, I'm kind of taking it back down with a brush. So even though I added that white, I'm kind of blending it out a bit with like a softer, a soft brush, just to humble myself. So I like the look of that. Next step is lashes. Cannot leave my lashes high and dry here. I'm using some that I have on Amazon. These are a 10 millimeter. I just do these all the way across. I don't, on myself, I'm just using one length. I end up using one length on a lot of people actually. Just a short, like 10 millimeter. So I have a black long wearing glue. We're gonna use this. I'm gonna put a little bit of that on the back of my hand. And then I'm going to grab a tweezer here that I have for doing lashes. And I'm gonna pick a cluster up. I'm gonna dip it in my glue. Will like show through. We don't want that. Okay, this one's fine. And I'm gluing from underneath. Because that's easy. And I think I'm just gonna do two on the ends. It looks pretty good. These are like a little bit, they flare out a little bit. They're kind of wide at the ends, at the tips, I mean. Put a little bit of glue on the bottom, on the lash. Like if you were looking at the lash from straight on, it would go on the top. So you'd be putting the glue, you pull this off and then you put the glue at the base of the lash, but on the top because you're gluing from underneath. Whereas most of the time, if you're putting a lash on, you're gluing it on the top of the lash and not the bottom of the lash. If you're gluing it on the top of the lash, you'd be putting the glue on the bottom of it and popping it on that way. But I'm putting it on the bottom, gluing it from underneath, so I'm putting it on the top of the lash and popping it on as such. And this black glue dries really fast. I put it on the back of my hand because I can kind of like swipe the lash through it and it makes like a little ball of glue. And as you get more familiar with doing this, you'll notice it does not need very much glue. So I am just putting two lashes on, two clusters. One kind of more in the middle of the eye. And one like right on the end. Okay, I think I like that. You could do more lashes on that. You could add, I might actually add, I feel like it stops too abruptly, so I'm gonna add a little eyelash. That's why I have all different sizes, folks. So I have these little eyelashes. These are like tiny little guys. Because I feel like right now, the transition goes from like lash to nothing. My lashes are very sad looking. So I'm gonna add this little guy right there because that will, doesn't necessarily look, oh shit. Doesn't necessarily look like another fake eyelash. It just looks like it's not an abrupt stop. Okay. So I'm gonna do that on the other side. The other side's not as bad. I think it's just how my lashes are. This tweezer is giving me a hard time. I buy lash extension tweezers on Amazon. One, because I do lash extensions, and two, because I use them for this because it works well. Except this tweezer sucks. I think I dropped it and it bent to the end. Okay. So we have lashes now on top. My next step is to blend out the lower lash line with some matte shadow, a color from this palette. We're gonna do kind of one of these like more neutral ones here. And this is not gonna be a dark color really at all. And I don't do any mascara on the bottom. And I don't do mascara on the bottom because, one, I don't like it. And two, if you're doing a wedding, mascara on the bottom can run or you know, it can just like kind of collect. So I did that kind of neutral color, and then I'm doing just like the tiniest bit of this darker brown on the outer corner. Okay. Taking my concealer brush, moving anything around that might have gotten picked up. One thing that I hate that sometimes happens with makeup is this little bit on the inside will get liner, will collect from the top. Okay. We're getting close. We're getting close, you guys. One little step I'm gonna do is take the makeup off of my nose ring and my beauty mark, or my face dot, as I like to call it. So see that? Such a difference. So if you have a client who has moles or freckles, anything like that, it's good to kind of clean those up because that will look more natural for them. So I clean up my nose ring, I clean up my beauty mark, and this is what we're left with. And then I'm going to get the little bit of foundation off of my lips. I'm just realizing I need to shave my mustache. So, if you're wondering what I'm doing later, it's that. Okay, so because this look is so kind of purpley and kind of cooler toned, I'm gonna go with like a neutral, more of a neutral lip. So we're gonna do, I'm pulling liners out here in case you're wondering what I'm doing. I'm gonna do a liner called Nude Beige, I think this is it. My lips have a lot of pink to them. Most of the time. Nude Beige is a cooler tone beige. I also have Nude Truffle. Slightly darker than Nude Beige. Using that as shadow. So liner is on. And then I like to, I think I'm gonna do my long wearing lip. So this is kind of a cooler toned, like neutrally pink. And I'm only putting the tiniest bit of that in the center and sort of buffing the rest of it out with my finger. These types of matte, long-wearing lips have a tendency to want to go so crusty. So that lip is on there, and I'm getting back in there with these liners. And kind of neutralizing it out a little bit. Like, the pink is cute, but I want to have it just calm down a tiny bit. So this is a look, you guys. If you wanted it slightly more matte through the face, you totally could. I kind of like it, not so matte. But just to appease you all, I think I will. I'm going to take a brush like this. You could use a puff. I'm dipping it in my powder palette here. These are a mixture of by Terry Hydro Powder and the Graftobian. So I'm going in with the by Terry, one of these lighter ones. I'm going with the by Terry. And we're going right through the center. Just on the spots where I will get oily, which is right here. Chin. And just like right in there. But I'm really leaving the rest of it alone. Maybe my forehead a little bit. I'm seeing it is reflecting into the light. Thanks, Dad, for the 5 head. Okay. That's pretty much it. My hair is crazy. It's like day 3 of dry shampoo. I was on a shoot the last 2 days. I have not washed it. Oh my God. It's so crazy. So this is a look. I'm going to move my mirror so I can actually like zoom in on myself. And you can see the finished look. Also, I do have clothes on. It looks like I don't have clothes on, but I promise I have a shirt on. So this is it. This is fucking annoying. The last step that I could do is my setting spray. You could do one of 2 things. You could do the powder melt, which will make everything look more like cohesive, or you could just get in there with the Kryolan fixing spray, which is what I'm gonna do. Also, I'm not doing anything tonight. I'm just gonna probably make some dinner here and then lay around, edit this video while I'm looking just really pretty. So this is a standard, one of my favorite makeup looks to do for a wedding. Soft wing, color on the lid, kind of in the purpley pinky tones. Really glowing skin. Nice lashes that are kind of fluffy, kind of on the ends. Really pulls everything like up this way. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed. I know this was a long video, but hopefully it's some good information for you guys. One more thing I'm gonna do. This is totally optional. I wanna add a little bit of gloss. I'm not really a gloss person, but I wanna show this, ooh, God, dropping things. The Danessa Myricks gloss, just so you guys can see how it looks with gloss. In the back of my hand, some gloss, a little doe foot applicator here. And I don't have my mirror in front of me, so I'm just raw dogging this on the camera. So you see how that completely changes the look of that. That completely changes the look of that lip. I like a matte lip. I get a lot of clients who like a glossy lip. I will say on the day of the wedding, if you're doing, I mean, you should have a lip color to touch up with, but you don't even have to wear much of a lip. You could just wear a little liner and a little gloss. And, you know, if you're not worried about it getting on your man, you're probably going to be having too much fun anyway to be touching up. So if you want to not have to worry about your lips and you're a lip girl, just go with whatever you feel comfortable with, whether that's a matte lip. I always ask my clients if they like a matte lip versus a glossy lip. But you can see how much that changes the look of everything when you go in with a glossy lip. So I'm going to take that gloss off. I took most of the lip off, but that color is still kind of under there. So even if you do some gloss and you kind of wear that off, usually what's left underneath will still show through. So this is the look. I hope you enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.